Hello, this is part 3 of the 13-week cash forecast, which I know y'all are excited about, but it is a simple tool that I want you to get comfortable using. I hope this will help you because the tool will help you manage cash in your business from week to week. And that's going to be, could be important. It is important for all of us to stay cash flow positive as much as possible and kind of know what's coming up so we can plan for expected revenues and expenses when they occur, and then also be able to repay debt on time and really know how much money we're going to need to borrow, say on a short-term basis over the next 90 days. What does that look like for us? I'm going to share my spreadsheet and hoping this can help you run your business more effectively. So you might ask, why 13 weeks? That is a 90-day period, quarterly basis. A lot of banks ask their borrowers to provide a 13-week cash forecast, particularly when cash is tight. And so this can help you monitor and plan for your cash in and cash out. Put your dates in here by week so you can see this is a 13-week forecast that ends November 13th. And what we're going to do now is, in this part 3, is we're going to get a little more complex in the forecasting and try to understand the numbers a little better. So instead of $5,000 in beginning cash, and of course, you know, you can add a 0 or 2 if it's 5,000, 50,000, or 5 million. This concept, this principle in cash forecasting applies to any size business. A lot of times small businesses don't use it because it's maybe too intimidating, but you can do this. And I would advise it. I would strongly advise it, that you get some sort of process in place for you to manage cash. So we changed this. I changed this beginning cash from $5,000 to $2,000 to create a more conservative cash forecast. This would be for a typical service business, and for a business kind of like mine, where I've got a small number of clients. But again, it can work for any size business. You just make assumptions that are relevant to how you operate. I am going to reduce my weekly forecast to $1,000 a week for the next 3 weeks, and then $1,200 a week for the next 3 weeks, and then $1,500. Whoop. Sorry about that. And then, you know, by this time frame, I'm thinking I can generate $2,000 a week. And you can see the numbers that I'm changing are, like in the last forecast, I expected to do $10,000 a week by week 13. And in this forecast, I'm changing it to $2,500. Mainly to show you an example of a conservative forecast. And then what do we do when we run out of cash? So these are lower assumptions for cash in. All of this section is cash in. This is my primary revenue stream, my secondary revenue stream, and my tertiary revenue stream. So I'm going to leave these two alone. I'm not going to make any changes. The way I have calculated cost of services or cost of goods sold is I take cash in for the same period, which is the cell number B9, times the cost of goods sold, which is 33%, so that would be 0.33, times, or the asterisk, -1, because this is all cash out down here. This is cash in. So I've changed my cost of goods sold and used that same formula. So this is times 33% times 33%. So as my revenue goes up, my cost of goods sold goes up somewhat relative to sales. And that's in addition to my fixed costs, which we'll talk about in a minute. The 20% commissions I'm going to keep in there. So this is calculated, that same cell number B9 times 0.2 times -1, because all of these numbers in the cash out section need to be a minus number. And my overhead. So G&A, general administrative costs, are typically your fixed cost. I just lumped them all together, but you can outline them separately. You could change the text over here and outline specific line items that you want to monitor more closely. In my case, what I want to do is just monitor my total fixed cost on a weekly basis. And a lot of them I pay bills the first week of the month. So every fourth week, I've got a bigger nut to cover in terms of cash outflow. All right, in my last assumption, I felt like I had plenty of cash. I was going to buy 2 laptops. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take these 2 purchases out of my cash flow analysis, and I'm not going to buy that vehicle. And since I'm not going to buy that vehicle, I'm not going to have to borrow for that vehicle, and I'm not going to have any payments, any loan payments. So I'm going to take those out. All right, hopefully you're with me. So we have reduced our cash outflow because the revenue we're expecting it to be lower. I'm still, at this point, I'm still looking at my target payment to myself of $1,500 a week, which is $6,000 a month. So I don't want to reduce that just yet. I want to look at my cash flow. So here I am. This is what the current forecast shows. I run out of cash basically here, and the negative numbers keep growing, although they kind of level off. So what I want to do is go back up to my revenue number and say, is that the most realistic, the most conservative, or can I add a little bit to that number? If I'm very comfortable with the cash in, if these are the sales numbers and I want to leave those alone, then the next number I would look at would be other expenses, which I feel like my cost of goods sold are going to stay the same. My fixed expenses, I've reduced to an amount that I can handle. I don't think I can reduce anymore. And it comes down to how much I can afford to pay myself. So if I take my compensation out of this forecast and see what the numbers look like, and then add back in what payments to myself I can afford. So I'm just playing around with numbers now. So this looks to me like the trend here is satisfactory. And of course, when you reach that, when you reach week 13, what this shows is that you're cash flow positive, but I haven't taken any money out for myself. So am I willing to do all this work and receive no payments? I don't think I'm willing to do that. So we can do one of several things. One is go back again to the revenues and say, how much harder can I work to generate additional revenues? How much do I have to put in the company right now in order to pay myself a salary and pay the expenses? Or do I have a line of credit, like in this example, there's a $30,000 revolver. Do I want to borrow money to pay myself? So in this situation, if I started paying myself, let's go back to this number, 15,222 without paying myself anything. If I were to pay myself $1,000 a week, I would still have, so 15 weeks, basically I would have $222 left, which is less than my beginning cash. So I can't pay myself 1,000 a week. I might be able to pay myself 500 a week. And so I would have to ask myself, is it worth it to, that would be 2,000. I mean, yeah, 2,000 a month. I'll have to think about that. What would you be willing to work for $2,000 a month and work your butt off? That's what this forecast shows that I can afford to do. And so let's look at the end of the day, I still have some extra cash to operate with, the 2,000. So basically this shows another $7,000 that I could either pay myself or leave in the company to grow. So let's say 7,000 divided by 15 weeks is 467. So really I can afford to pay myself more than 500. Does this make sense to you? So I'm going to say if I pay myself 900 a week, that would be 3,600 a month. Am I willing to work for myself for 3,600 a month? Yes, probably. And so let's say after I have paid myself that 900 a week and the expenses that we talked about and a conservative revenue forecast, and I still have $2,000 in the month in the bank, then I've got 2,400 to play with. So that's what this forecast shows me. There are a number of questions that you can ask yourself and play around with the the assumptions that you make. So for example, if I wanted to cover, it's not necessarily wise to borrow from this revolver if I don't have a revenue plan to eventually generate additional cash to cover the repayment of what I borrow. So I think in my case, I would be okay with this 13-week forecast as a conservative cash management plan. For you, it might be different. You might feel more comfortable with borrowing money because you know that you're building the capacity over the next 90 days to jump up in sales. And then that would mean we'd look at the second 13-week forecast or the second quarter and see how those numbers flush out. I hope this has been helpful to you and not confusing, and I hope you're, not like fixing to faint because you don't like talking about numbers and this is too intimidating. So get comfortable with looking at your numbers, playing around with the facts and then assumptions and the what ifs so that you can survive and thrive in your business. That's the bottom line. Connect with me at nitablack.com. I'll be launching a new Rebuild Business program. It's a 10-session online group program for businesses that are struggling with cash flow. I hope to connect with you soon. Take care.